I think the violent riots that we saw in Trenton and across the country were insane and unproductive, and I don't think they did anything to help either side. Um, I I know that the cop who is sitting in prison for that didn't wake up that day and say, "I'm going to go out and kill this guy." That was early 2000s, and yes, that's exactly the kind of thing we would do. We would just gather after work in the parking lot and hang out and talk about it. Um, Nowadays, with the resiliency and things like that, we have police officers who are trained to kind of decompress, right? So, as a sergeant, I would have called this one particular officer who's trained in that and say, "Hey, man, I need you to come in tonight after work and talk to us," because they're trained to kind of pull out of people, is this something that we could just talk about and we're going to be good, or is this something that needs some professional assistance, right? um, and it's those specially trained officers who can recognize, all right, most of you are good, but this person is really hurting, and maybe we'll go up to that cop afterward and say, "Hey, let's go talk to this professional who can help you work through this."
How did you deal with that particular incident as far as talking to your men? Do you remember? You maybe you can remember.
I mean, I don't remember specifics. I know we definitely talked that night after work in the parking lot. I know that for the next couple of years, in that squad, it would come up often, often, and we would talk about it. Specifically, what we said, things like that. I don't remember. I know. Excuse me. One of the things that is important to me was, training and tactics. So, without bashing him over his tactics, we certainly diagnosed, okay, if he had walked this way, if he had done this, could he have avoided what happened? Why did he go that way? Was there a particular reason? So we definitely try to turn it into a training experience also, and diagnose how it happened and how we can avoid it happening again. But a lot of it is just, you know, talking about it. Man, I hope he's okay. Let's do something for his family. Things along those lines.
What about the sense of anger? How do you deal with that? You just seen one of your guys get seriously hurt. He might not even walk for the rest of his life. I don't know what happened to that police officer, but anything can happen. How do you deal with that sense of anger, man? Like, how do you not grab your gun and start going Clint Eastwood on everybody?
You just have to learn to control your emotions, man. If I put a bullet in that guy's head, I'm going to prison now for the rest of my life. I'm not cut out for prison. I can't go to jail. So, you just have to learn to control your emotions. And, when you're a 21, 22, 23-year old guy with a brand new badge, it's tougher, but you rely on the more senior cops and the sergeants to help you work through that. If you see somebody who's about to go overboard with their use of force, you need to pull them back, and you need to get them out of that situation to recognize, hey, you got to control your emotions here.
When in that particular incident, when you got that guy into custody, um you might want to answer, you might not want to answer. Did you guys have an opportunity to kind of get him in a lonely cell and beat his ass?
No, you know what? I never saw that guy again, honestly. I was one of the two cops who put handcuffs on him. At that time, we had these big Chevy Suburbans where we would transport prisoners. So the third cop there was in one of those Suburbans. Once we put handcuffs on him, I literally ran back to my car and drove back to the guy who was hurt. That's really all that was on my mind, was trying to help him. Um, so I never saw that guy again.
Do you think it would be helpful if you guys would legally be allowed to do something like that?
For me, no, because that's just against my morals, right? Like, I don't know. It's just it's so Roman esque gladiator ish to me, where
Yeah,
I don't feel like me beating somebody is going to make me feel better about anything.
or solve anything, right?
Right.
But
Right.
then again, from a human perspective, this police officer is out on the job. He is trying to see the community be safe. He just had this happen. You have to remember, at home, he might have a wife, a kid. Now his whole family is going to be impacted by this. And this is what I'm really trying to understand. How do you go past that anger, and especially being a police officer and serving justice, you know? Um,
I don't have a good solid answer for you. I don't think that me beating that guy up would have solved anything. I don't think it would have made me feel better. Um, I
Now, let's say
don't
I'm
really have
really
an answer for you there.
thank God this didn't happen, but let's say the police officer died.
Hmm. Again, I don't know that me beating that guy up would have helped me feel better.
Have you heard of incidents like that when, let's say, a police officer got shot or anything like that, and then the suspect is taken back somewhere to a lonely cell and you beat his ass?
I've heard, I've never seen it.
Okay.
I definitely heard.
In that particular incident, and I just want to we're gonna move on because I'm taking a bunch of your time.
Oh,
What did
hour,
what did-
minutes? That flies, man.
yeah, right, what did the police officer do wrong in your opinion in that particular incident?
I don't want to say he did anything wrong. I would say that had he walked around the back of the car rather than the front, there's a good chance that he wouldn't have been struck.
Okay, yeah, I don't want
Or,
to I don't want
or if he didn't even walk to the driver's side, if he had just stayed on the passenger side.
I want to thank you again for even being here, and again, like, I could keep you here forever because I have so many questions. And
We
when you
got through like about a third of my career, so if you want to do this again and we can get into like the
yeah,
amusement
yeah.
part of it, we could do that.
Thank you, thank you. I just wanna I promise I'll get you out of here quick. When you were a young officer and to what you see now, do you see the mood of the population changed, whereas maybe when you were a young police officer, the population was proud of the cops, and now we're sort of seeing like this bashing of police officers?
One of my academy instructors said that the support is like a pendulum. It's just always going back and forth. And he couldn't have been more right. Um, but here's the thing, like, especially like after George Floyd and all of the riots and all of the defund the police and everything, the public sentiment seemed to be anti-police. I never had more support in my entire career than in those few years. Strangers coming up to me, good job, we support you. Never more support than that.
I'm glad to hear that, man. And by the way, I don't know if you watched the whole George Floyd. There's this whole tape out. I personally myself think this whole thing was a setup, man. And my next question was, do you think that the media played more part into the whole this connection with the population, the police officers, more so than the something that the police officers have done? Or is it both, like?
I mean, I am not a fan of media in general. I feel like most media, right and left, is just so divisive. Um, so, yeah, from a cop standpoint, I think the media played a huge part in a lot of it. But we can't be innocent in it either, cops. I mean, obviously, we play a role in it as much as anybody. So I'm not a fan of media in general, but uh, it's part of our society, so you gotta roll with the punches.
Just real quick, how did you, as a police, I'm gonna ask you as a human being, but as a police officer, how did you judge the whole George Floyd incident?
Man, that was tough. First of all, I think the reaction afterwards was out of line. I think the violent riots that we saw in Trenton and across the country were insane and unproductive, and I don't think they did anything to help either side. Um, I I know that the cop who is sitting in prison for that didn't wake up that day and say, "I'm going to go out and kill this guy." Right? I've been in similar situations with a combative arrestee in handcuffs, and where I think that cop went too far was at some point he had to feel the lack of resistance, the limpness, and at that point he should have went from cop holding down suspect to cop checking to see if somebody's alive. Um, I don't remember what he was found guilty of. I think it was probably higher than his culpability, but at some point I've watched the video. Like I can see. I don't remember exactly where in the video was, but I can see where he goes from moving to just limp, and he should have been able to recognize that and respond differently than he did.
In such a high alert situation, can you really, um like, because everything is going on at the same time, can you really stop yourself to recognize something? Because everything is happening in the heat of the moment. Us as observers, we're looking at a tape and we're like, oh, he should have done this, or but at that moment, like, what is it? Is it training? Is it a lack of it? Like, what do you think stopped the cop from not recognizing what you're saying?
I don't know the answer to that. Right, so that cop wasn't being personally attacked. He had other officers in front of him keeping that crowd back. So his only responsibility at that point was George Floyd. And there's a point in that video where you can see Floyd basically go limp. And I think at that point is where he should have done something different.
What about the knee on the neck thing?
So if you watch it, it's not like he's got his knee like, crushing down on his neck. His knee is back up in this area. It's a control tactic. You control somebody's head, you control their body, right?
So that's lawful.
Yes, well, in this case it was found unlawful, but generally yes, that's a lawful defensive tactic.
So this whole story with he wasn't supposed to have his knee on his neck and things like that, this is all again media blowing this thing out of proportion and looking for excuses to so so as a police officer, again, as a police officer watching this, do you think the cops being indicted the way they were is like, you wouldn't do that? Like, what would you do in that case? How would you deal with those police officers?
The ones around him, all of the ones holding that crowd back, um, I don't think should be in prison. I don't think they should have faced criminal charges. The one holding him down, criminal charges. That's a tough one. I can't say I've ever thought of it so deep to determine whether or not I think he should have faced criminal charges or not. He definitely didn't handle the situation well. I don't know if I think he should be in prison.
When you're watching something like this and you're watching the reaction of the nation and everything like that, your personal side and your police officer side, are they conflicting at this moment?
Sometimes, yeah. Like as a cop, I'm like, man, I don't want to see another cop go to jail. But then as a person watching it, like I said, when I see that change in Floyd's body, I'm like, oh man, that's not good right there.
Okay, listen, again, if you wanna end this, you just let me know, because again, like, we can do a part two, part three, whatever, man, because I have so many more questions that I'm interested in. So it's up to you, man. Do you still have time, or?
Yeah, no, let's wrap this one up for today, and we'll come back and do
Okay.
another.
Cool, cool, cool. Again, Peter, I cannot thank you enough. This was extremely interesting. Maybe it doesn't seem so like to you, but I was on the edge of my seat the whole time because, again, I think it's super important, man. And so man, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so so much. And if we can sometimes do a part two, because I think what the next thing that I want to get into is more of the politics of being a police officer.
Yeah, sounds good.
um yeah, so you let me know, you stay in touch, man. And again, me as a civilian, as a citizen, thank you so much for who you are
Thank
as
you
a
for the
human,
support.
as a human being, and as a police officer. I truly believe we need more police officers like you. And I think I speak for the majority, that most of the population, we don't dislike police officers, we dislike bad police officers.
So do we.
What is the one that I'm just this is my very last question, I promise you. What is the worst enemy of a police officer?
We're, I mean, so there's two, right? There's somebody who wants to kill a cop. In my opinion, that's a pretty good enemy. Um, but bad cops hurt all of us, so they're certainly high on the list as a worst enemy.
That's why I was asking you that, man. I was actually looking for that answer, because from what I understand, most people, that's what they say. The worst enemy of a good cop is a bad cop. Peter, thank you so so much. We're gonna stay in touch, and you let me know when we can do like a part two.
All right, man.
And God bless you, man. And I wish you the greatest everything in your life. And if you ever need me, I'm a text away. I'm not too far away, man.
All right, man. Same here.
Thank you so much, Peter.
All right, bye.
Thank you. Have a good one.